Good morning. This is the weekly meeting of the Natural Rights Sangha for Sunday, July 19th of 2020. And I'm Mark. I'm the so-called minister of the Natural Rights Sangha. And we always start with a meditation. So I hope you have a timing device with you, your phone with a timer or whatever is great. By the way, please put your timer on your phone on airplane mode. And we're going to meditate for, it's up to you how long, 6 minutes, 8 minutes, 10 minutes, 12 minutes. And what we'll do is we'll start the meditation. You press stop as far as play. And when your timer goes off, please turn it back on again. There's no reason to sit and watch me for 10 minutes. Besides, your eyes are going to be closed anyway. So it's a waste of web space and time to do that. And data usage, if that's a problem, and it is for some of us. And so when we meditate, there are many types of meditation, but the one that we prefer is just to let thoughts go and to just focus on inhaling and exhaling. And if thoughts come, we thinking, and let the thoughts go away. Because if we start going, oh yeah, that's right, it is Sunday, and I'm or whatever, okay, or geez, it's Sunday. I wish football was happening this year because I sure love my football, or whatever it is. If you get into that chain of thought, you will be caught, and you won't be meditating anymore. So try to let those go and just focus on the breath going past the tip of the nose and exhaling. Yeah. And so please get your timer ready. I'm going to stop it just for a second for you to get it if you need it, and then we'll be right back. Okay, so with your timer ready, let's sit comfortably. Sit straight. My chair moves a little bit, so I want to set it so it won't move. And inhale and exhale. Relax, and I'll turn this off. Please start your timer and begin to meditate, and I'll see you when you're done, and please turn it back on. Okay, we're done meditating now, and we'll move to the next part of our meeting. Now, we don't call it a service, and we don't call it a satsang, we call it a meeting. That's just my preference. And just like we're called a Sangha, not a congregation, because a congregation has a Christian meaning, and a Sangha is everybody, okay? Everybody meeting together to share spiritual truth, and hopefully that's what we purvey here. But again, that's for you to decide. If you think I'm full of prunes, then this isn't the place, right? Think about what is said here, meditate on it, do Shravana, Manana, Nididasana. Well, Nididasana comes later, but hear it, contemplate it with Manana, which is spelled the same as the Spanish mañana. And if it's right for you, then go with it. That's the key. And do that with anybody, not just me, but everybody. That's one of our precepts, actually, is to do exactly that. Never believe anything without checking it out for yourself. But I've had questions about who I recommend. So I'm going to give a few names here of persons that I recommend in some ways, or at least specifically books this week. And I'll go into some individual teachers next week who are still around to teach you. But specifically, one person I'd like to recommend is this person. I'm going to cover the other first. Robert Wolfe. Robert Wolf's books are phenomenal. And please note livingnonduality.org. Livingnonduality.org is a fantastic website, and some of his books are there to download for free. And anything by Robert Wolf, I heartily recommend. Anything. Robert is the man, as far as I'm concerned, as far as writing modern, non-dual, fantastic books. And he writes from a variety of frameworks. He writes about science. He finds the non-duality in the teachings of Jesus. He does many works with Buddhist texts, many works with Advaitic texts. He works with Chinese Buddhist, Japanese Buddhist. He has books of small essays that full of hundreds of small essays that are wonderful, from 1 to 5 pages long. He has books about science. That's a fantastic one. And this is his latest book. And this is Ramana Maharshi. And it is called Ramana Maharshi, Teachings of Self-Realization. And this is a compendium of almost everything Robert ever wrote about Ramana Maharshi, and a few new things all put together into one book. Now, we'll talk a lot about Ramana Maharshi. If you're over 70 years old at this time, you were born when Ramana Maharshi was still alive. Unlike so many spiritually great people, Ramana was alive until the mid-20th century. And he was the inspiration for many of the great, great teachers. Now, another author I would recommend, particularly 2 books, is Ramesh Balsekar. Now, he was a student of Nisargadatta Maharaj, and Nisargadatta, of course, was the subject of the book I Am That. Now, I Am That is still a bestseller. It's still considered a great book, but some things were a little bit unfortunate with that book, and that the term for awareness and consciousness, because of linguistic and other difficulties, sometimes get confused. Because when we think of consciousness, we think of conscious and unconscious and things like this. And the word awareness, as we use it with Turiya, is a different thing. Now remember, Turiya we talked about before, but the awareness that is the base of all is Turiya. And so in the book, I Am That, awareness and consciousness, the terms are used a bit interchangeably. Nisargadatta himself said, there are some things that are a little bit quirky about I Am That. And he was very glad that Ramesh Balsekar recommended or wrote this book. Okay, this is pointers from Nisargadatta Maharaj. And you can see I have some things bookmarked in there for me. I review this book quite often. And having known Ramesh for years, I can honestly say that he never left the teachings of his master. He taught them his own way. They were very different people. Nisargadatta was from a poor background, had a relatively modest education. He lived in the slums. He sold terrible cigarettes called beedies. But he was a dynamic teacher and very well deservedly acclaimed in his own right. But Ramesh met him late in Nisargadatta's life, and after Ramesh had retired, so he was over 60, and instantly realized that this was his teacher and became his interpreter. But he wrote down things about Nisargadatta, and when Nisargadatta found out that he was taking notes for himself, he smiled and nodded like, this is a good thing, and encouraged him. And so that led to this book, which was Ramesh's first. The other book that became one of Ramesh's favorites of the many that came out was A Personal Religion of Your Own. It's a very small book, but if you get this book, I heartily recommend it. It's short and sweet, and it's a very thought-provoking, and has so much wonderful information in a short space. I can't keep it. I loan it to friends, and they keep it. Never comes back. Okay, and it's kind of funny. It's one of those books that once they get it, they don't want to give it up. But so I recommend Robert Wolfe, and I recommend these two books as far as books to read. There's also some other stuff that's going to come up in a minute that I recommend. In non-duality, which is my personal belief, which I believe also is at the heart of Jesus's teachings and Buddha's teachings, there was a progression in chronological, looking at it chronologically, from the Bhagavad Gita, which covered many different paths, to the Ashtavakra Gita, which is short and sweet and wonderful and absolutely fantastic. Okay. Many people, including Ramesh Balsekar, have written commentaries about the Ashtavakra Gita. Robert Wolfe has written a commentary about the Ashtavakra Gita. Those are two of the best, most likely, that you will find. But throughout, as time moved along, a gentleman named Gaudapada showed up. And Gaudapada was the spiritual grandfather. In other words, he was the guru of this gentleman, Shankara Acharya. Now, Shankara called Gaudapada the Parama Guru. And Parama Guru means the ultimate teacher, the absolute best. Okay, and so Shankara was so excited about what Gaudapada had written, especially this work, the Mandukya Karima, which also called the Gaudapada Karima. Karima means commentaries. Gaudapada's commentaries on the Mandukya Upanishad, which sounds like a lot of stuff, that's why I'm writing it down, is a classic. And it inspired Shankara, who, as one of my wisest friends says, the closer you are to Shankara, the better you are. The farther you move away from Shankara, the farther you are getting away from the truth. Well, 1200 years or so after Shankara, Ramana Maharshi came along. And Ramana Maharshi had an experience as a teenager, which was very rare. He awakened, and the awakening for him became virtually a full enlightenment. For most of us, we have an awakening, and we still have to work through our stuff regarding sex, drugs, fame, power, and money. It takes 5 to 10 years after awakening for most people, if they do their work, before they should really consider teaching. Now, for Ramana, he just lit up, and for whatever reasons, he didn't have strong vasanas and samskaras regarding sex, drugs, fame, power, and money. Could have cared less about any of them. And he just left home and went to the holy mountain Arunachala and never left. And gradually, people began to realize, hey, this kid, this teenage boy who's now in his 20s and going into his 30s eventually, is special. And he was recognized by people that, wow, this guy has a light. This guy has a knowingness that he's not a typical beggar kid or a typical sadhu kid. He's not that. This guy's for real. And so Ramana really made people wonder when he was able to live in a cave on the mountain in which no one had been able to live there for centuries, because it was the site of where a great saint in the tradition of the land had left his body. And the story is that his body became a pile of salt and ash spontaneously when he left, and no one else had been able to spend the night in there ever since, because it was too powerful. Well, Ramana lived there. So when that kid ended up living there, that got some people's attention. Well, Ramana for years said almost nothing. In fact, he was the teacher of silence. not teaching of silence. He was in silence, and that was the way he mostly taught. Nowadays we have whole books of stuff Ramana said. Well, guess what? He said that stuff over 40 or 50 years, and we only have a few books worth. Most people talk a book's worth of words in a month. Not that it's worth a book, but it's that many words. Ramana would take a lot longer. But Ramana, when he read the works of Shankara, he just realized that, wow, these words express what's happening in here. And finally, he found the way to express what he was experiencing with language. And he took some of the works of Shankara and translated them personally into his native tongue, which was Tamil, which is the language of southern India, especially southeastern India, across from Sri Lanka. So he wrote these in Tamil, and these are now in the collected works of Sri Ramana Maharshi. These works by Shankara are as translated by him, and they're absolutely extraordinary. We'll talk more about one of them later. I'll even read it to us in a thing coming up. It's so impressive. So these people, these works, I recommend this one. I recommend Ramana Maharshi's translations of Shankara and the introductions especially, okay, as being very, very, very good. Now there's another gentleman, Swami Nikhilananda. Now, Swami Nikhilananda lived in the United States for most of his life. And he didn't pass away until 1973, which means he lived to 23 years after Ramana. His translations of things are also very excellent, very excellent. And he was amazingly prolific. So people have asked me who I recommend. As far as writings, I recommend especially the Ashtavakra Gita, the works of Shankara, the collected works of Ramana Maharshi, especially related to Shankara, and if you want good translation, Swami Nikhilananda. And that is not to forget Robert Wolfe and his books, but also his website, which offers some free ones at livingnonduality.org, and A Personal Religion of Your Own, and Pointers from Nisar Gadatta Maharaj by Ramesh Balsekar. Those are books I recommend. Now, again, that's the Shravana part, is reading good books or watching good YouTube clips, or hopefully seeing a great master in person. We'll talk about some great teachers who are around for you next week. But if you read books like this, and then do your manana, do your contemplation, do your meditating. Sometimes you can only read these books for a couple pages and you got to stop and go, whoa, okay. Wow. After I first met Ramesh, it took me 3 years just to get around his concepts. Yeah, it was like, really? Huh. Thick skull here, yeah? But, oh well. Okay, well, let's move to the last part of our meeting, which is saying the 4 immeasurables. Now, excuse me while I reach here. The 4 immeasurables, you can use them anytime. And there's just 4 of them, and we're going to say them twice. And the first time we say it, we'll say it for I. So please repeat after me. May I have happiness and all of the causes of happiness. May I be liberated from suffering and all of the causes of suffering. May I never be separate from the happiness that is free of sorrow. May I reside in equanimity, free of attachment and aversion. Okay, so next we're going to say it for we. So think of a we. Think of yourself and think of people you care about and people you think need really good energy coming to them, even maybe some people who upset you in some way or have been not so nice in your life. But maybe this will help them. Maybe this sharing of good energy will be a good thing. So, certainly the Buddhists believe in compassion, and Ramana Maharshi was the most compassionate of people. I mean, he deeply cared about anything that a sincere seeker needed or wanted to know. He'd be there for him. So, the four immeasurables for we. So, may we have happiness and the causes of happiness. May we be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May we never be separate from the happiness that is free of sorrow. May we reside in equanimity, free of attachment and aversion. Okay, well, thank you for coming. Thank you for being here. If you have any questions, please send them to me at mark@naturalrightsangha.org. And blessings. Have a good week.